The Theory of Political Economy by William Stanley Jevons. Chapter 6 Theory of Rent. Part 3 Illustrations of the Theory. It is very easy to illustrate the theory of rent by diagrams. For let distance along the line OX denote quantities of labor, and let the curve APC represent the variation of the rate of production, so that the area of the curve will be the measure of the produce. Thus when labor has been applied to the amount OM, the produce will correspond to the area APMO. Let a small new increment of labor, MM', be applied, and suppose the rate of production equal over the whole of the increment. Then the small parallelogram, PP', M', will be the produce. This will be proportional in quantity to PM, so that the height of any point of the curve perpendicularly above a point of the line OX represents the rate of production at that point in the application of labor. If we further suppose that the laborer considers his labor MM' repaid by the produce PM', there is no reason why any other part of his labor should not be repaid at the same rate. Drawing then a horizontal line RPQ through the point P, his whole labor OM will be repaid by the produce represented by the area ORPM. Consequently, the overlying area RAP is the excess of produce which can be exacted from him as rent, if he be not himself the owner of the land. Imagining the same person to cultivate another piece of land, we might take the curve BQC to represent its productiveness. The same rate of production will repay the laborer in this case as in the last, so that the intersection of the same horizontal line RPQ with the curve will determine the final point of labor, N. The area Rn will be the measure of the sufficient recompense to the whole labor On spent upon the land, and the excess of produce or rent will be the area RBQ. In a similar manner, any number of pieces of land might be considered. The figure might have been drawn so that the curves would rise on leaving the initial line OY, indicating that a very little labor will have a poor rate of production, and that a certain amount of labor is requisite to develop the fertility of the soil. This may often or always be the case, as a considerable quantity of labor is generally requisite in first bringing land into cultivation, or merely keeping it in a fit state for use. The laws of rent depend on the undoubted principle that the curves always ultimately decline towards the base line OX, that is, the final rate of production always ultimately sinks towards zero.